Hello, I am C3PO, and I believe the storyteller is ready. So let us begin.
Death Watch is now mobilizing. They're continuing to threaten the life of Duchess Satine. This is kind of creating a narrative where to the Senate, she's, I guess, a liability. And so Palpatine is kind of undermining her political efforts. And so after Satine is attacked one additional time in her cruiser, and there are, in fact, fatalities, she must go into hiding. And then she and Obi-Wan create a new plan.
Yeah, so while she's been on Coruscant, she's been trying to kind of fight for the sovereignty of her people to not be occupied by the Republic. She doesn't want their assistance, but because Death Watch is a big concern and everybody knows this, the Republic wants to kind of step in, make Mandalore part of the bigger war and say the Death Watch, because they're aligned with separatists, have made Mandalore part of the war, whether they like it or not. Satine wants her sovereignty, and a friend of hers had sent in a holo message that was supporting Satine, but we only see a certain percentage of that holo, and it makes it look like he very much is against Satine, and the holo is thus kind of faked in that regard. And so that's really as what put the screws on Satine, and why she has to kind of go into the streets of Coruscant to get some key information to really see whether or not what she saw on holo was true. And as she's kind of going through the streets, she is set up for a kind of a framed murder of her contact when a Death Watch assassin comes to try and take her out. She meets up with Obi-Wan, and he does assist her as she is trying to kind of clear her name. She turns herself in so that specifically the information can then be brought through and ultimately revealed to the Senate with Obi-Wan's assistance, so that it can be ultimately cleared that the initial message was what it was initially meant to be, and that the Republic should stay out of Mandalore, and that they don't need their assistance, and that their pacifist ways is what the people want, and they don't want Republic assistance.
What I would say as this the third part of this sort of like mini Mandalore origin story / trilogy from season 2 of the Clone Wars is that it doesn't feel a whole lot more conclusive than its previous 2 episodes. It kind of just feels additionally episodic, which is fine. But if I don't already have this pre-existing understanding of Mandalore or Mandalorians, I guess, through the show The Mandalorian, and know therein that there are heroes among, I'm kind of left here thinking that Satine aside, Mandalore is nothing but a planet of villains. Like everybody seems to be so two-faced and shady. Like I just don't find that this little trilogy of episodes does very well for the reputation of Mandalore.
I think that's partly because you've only seen the end and now the beginning. So you've seen, like, Prime Minister Almec is not evil at this point. We don't necessarily, like, we know that, yes, he's shit-talked Jango Fett, but Jango Fett's a bad guy. And so from our mindset, really, Satine is right. Death Watch is on their own they're on their own moon. So I wouldn't necessarily say that. I think it's because you're seeing the end of the story and the beginning of the story. This is a necessary part of the overall flow for the next time that Mandalore comes up again in the Clone Wars. But I hard agree that it is episodic, and it's not conclusive, which it isn't, but it's also not necessarily even the strongest of episodes for the Clone Wars.
No, but what it is a great friend to somebody who actually enjoys the good aspects of the prequels. And so you get a lot of elements in here that feel very authentically prequel Star Wars, like the Senate, and like a Palpatine who feels very genuinely like the Sheev Palpatine we know. Count Dooku's in here a little bit. Like, it is a good Attack of the Clones sister story.
Yeah, I have that actually as the kind of my best moment, or my best part of the episode, was the fact that it's building upon that, like the chase sequence you get at the start of Attack of the Clones. You get a similar sort of sequence to that with Satine and the bounty hunter, and they're going through the city. It feels very like born galaxy far, far away. I like the vibe that they give you with that, but yet it also feels like a bit of an old timey spy movie. And so it's really hitting on a lot of influential notes. It doesn't necessarily stand off the page, but it is a good episodic story, and it doesn't kind of ring through as one that you would mark as like, oh, my favorite episode, but it is one that really it's an enjoyable watch, and it goes really well with the other ones that we previously watched.
Well, and this has now become like a classic romantic context too for the spy thriller or the political thriller, which is sexy bodyguard. So we have a female, typically female, although sometimes not, a person of import, whether it's what's her name in the Bodyguard on Netflix, or Whitney Houston, or in this case Duchess Satine, and the obvious romantic tension with her body man, with the person who is like tasked with looking after her. And then there are entangled all of these romantic and personal feelings that make it all the more complicated when in fact they don't agree politically, or when they don't get along even rhythmically, when they like, that's really prominent in the dynamic between Obi-Wan and Satine. They bicker so much, but that does kind of add to the coolness of their relationship. And all of that to say, this feels to me like a really well-written political thriller, and I think Star Wars does genre specificity really nicely.
It does, and I think that was one thing that was good. Like, I really enjoyed the fact that it was definitely a political episode. But one thing that I think it maybe lacked a bit of was the fact that it was a very political episode, but it didn't really lean too much into the nasty side. There was that one sequence where you see Count Dooku and Palpatine kind of converse and given, like, Dooku's just giving an update, really. But I would have liked to have seen more Palpatine behind the scenes. You see definitely some puppet mastery going on, but I would have liked a little bit more, maybe even just one more scene. I like the use of Masameda as kind of like his lapdog in the episode, but the politics was the highlight. So I would have liked it to maybe get the same attention the way that the spy thriller angle as well did.
I'm pretty sure it's the first time I've seen Padme in the Clone Wars.
Oh man, Padme in the Clone Wars knocks the knocks the crap out of Padme in the prequels.
I wanted to ask you about that, if she is good and if she's more fleshed out, and because the voice performance was fine, but we don't get a ton of her here.
Well, yeah, that's the thing though. For me now, it's real. Like when you watch the prequels, like Natalie Portman, she's struggling to act in George Lucas's kind of blue and green screened world. And that's rough for sure. And it does come through with a pretty wooden performance. But Kat Tabor, who does the performance for the Clone Wars, I have a lot more screen time of her doing that voice. And also she narrates the audiobooks that are kind of telling. It's a trilogy of books, and there's the first two that have come out, and in the news I'm going to mention the third one that's coming out, but they tell kind of key points in Padme's life from a very personal perspective. It doesn't, like, the plot isn't that deep for these books, but they're really quite engaging because of the very personal perspective and the relationships that Padme has with her handmaidens. So she's an excellent Padme in terms of really being able to see kind of the fearless leader that Leia becomes, and kind of that founder of the rebellion, and the person who's Bail Organa and Mon Mothma's partner on a lot of things. So it really does, it works. She kills it.
Does that actress voice those books as Padme, or just as a narrator, and you feel connected to it because she's Padme?
Oh no, she does an exceptional job. Like a lot of there's only one Star Wars book I've read, and even he did the voices. They were just really bad. It was the author, Daniel Jose Older. It was for Last Shot. But every single one they do, it's voice acting performances, and sometimes they'll have multiple people for the cast, but it's usually just somebody who's really giving it their all, and they'll deepen their voice for a couple different characters.
Yeah, no, I was just I was a little confused because you had said that she narrates these books about Padme, and I wasn't sure if that meant she was actually playing Padme in them.
Yeah, she plays Padme, but she's also playing all the other handmaidens. So it's extremely impressive the subtle differences that she'll do while keeping her same voice. And then she also does the Amidala voice as well as the Padme voice, which
Cool.
is intentionally a thing. And they explore why. Like they basically say this is a voice they created because it was specifically one that Sabe, who was Keira Knightley's character, and Padme could do at the same level. It was closer to Sabe's lower register than Padme's, and that's why it was a little bit deeper, but it was one that they could both do exactly the same. And she was the most frequent. Yeah, exactly. And so they both spoke in that same stilted dialogue. I will not watch my people suffer. And it was on purpose, and it makes a lot of sense. I mean, yes, that kind of mid-Atlantic talk works for Star Wars as well. But Padme and Amidala have two straight up different voices in The Phantom Menace, and they explain why, and it's got a lot of good reason. I mean, she's got all these decoys for a reason. It makes sense they're going to have to disguise the voice as well.
As long as we're talking about Padme, I just wanted to point out one tiny nitpick about Satine in this episode. She pronounces it Padme with the third syllable.
Oh, yeah?
Is similar to how fans have pointed out, Jim Halpert pronounces it Dwight. And once you hear that, you can't unhear it. But it stood up quite plainly as Padme when Satine said it in this episode. And similarly, I think I forgot to mention this last week, but she occasionally calls Obi-Wan Obi, and I don't like it, man. It bugs me.
Obi! It just reminds me of when Jar Jar does it at the start of Attack of the Clones.
It just doesn't work as a nickname for Obi-Wan to me.
No, but it goes to show that specifically she has a relationship with him that she can get away with doing something like that.
Right.
I think that's kind of what you're supposed to view it from. Or the fact that it goes back to maybe at a younger age in which he would have been more comfortable being called that.
The opening fortune cookie for this episode is, in war, truth is the first casualty, which I think is something, I mean, we can really relate to now because truth is something that's so imperiled just in our world, not necessarily through the context of war, but tumult in general, like social turbulence. How does it relate to this particular episode? I guess because they're politically manipulating this Jarek's message in order to get what they want.
Yeah, I mean, Jarek, it's not a deep fake, but it's the same kind of notion of what you could fear, and the way that people particularly cut media, and the way that if you own the information, you can spin it all you want. And so it's just it's an interesting way that it shows the control the Republic has. And the way that it has influence over everything, and then even on the streets, and how quickly Satine is identified. And it's just an episode that really shows a lot of those Republic failings, and I think that's just one of those good examples of it.
I think in the Bad Batch, when they do fortune cookies at the beginning, they should slip in one John Mayer quote per season. And if you find it, you get to tour the chocolate factory.
Yeah, it was too appropriate to go there. It was what I was going to say, and so I just bent it just a little bit.
You can bend it all you want.
Damn it,
Jarek. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you and I played a lot of Star Wars PC games, like even prequels, maybe, or like right around that time. Was there not a villain in like Dark Forces or Jedi Knight named Jarek?
There was. Yep, he had. Kind of the tattoos coming down from the side of his mouth, similar to the way Ventress does. I don't know if in Legends he was from Dathomir as well, or
so he's a Legends character, and they just decided to repurpose his name the way they did like Jason Solo, Ben Solo kind of thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, Jason, they reused his name with Jason Syndulla. So when Hera had a kid, they used the same weird spelling of Jason for that. So yeah, that same kind of concept. They've done that with a handful of names. And even also, there are some names in Star Wars that just are repeated because Antilles. There are, I think, at least three different Antilles that are not related in Star Wars.
It's two Jins, Qui-Gon Jinn and Jyn Erso.
Different spelling, first name and last name, but yep, absolutely.
But I mean, those are pretty prominent main characters that are both Jin at some point in their name.
Yeah, there's another very prominent one that's slipping my mind.
I I rarely get to know the kind of niche Legends character and how his name has been repurposed in Star Wars, and so I feel proud of myself for catching on.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. That was one of my trivia questions.
Not a lot of quick little one-liners in this episode, but a couple of really good longer lines.
Yeah, I have 2 lines down here, and one of them I don't think you would have because it was one that it's not a good line, but it's a great line because it's Star Wars.
Yeah.
But I had almost nothing. I thought it was the dialogue was good, but there was nothing standout for me.
Right.
I did love it when Satine said, though, Obi-Wan, I need your help. Just a little similar words to a Help Me Obi-Wan Kenobi, but
You can use that for the title. That's a really good one.
It also is very fitting for the episode, so sure. Yeah. And my only other quote was Dooku's one at the very, very beginning of the episode. I assure you, the Republic will oblige you the fight you're looking for.
Good. That's nice.
Yeah, I thought that was a good quote. I was like, ooh, nice start to the episode. And then I didn't get another one until like the end. Everything else was okay, though.
We say this a lot, but really good vocal performance from that guy who plays Count Dooku and this guy, Abercrombie, who plays Palpatine. He's been dead almost a decade now, I guess. But
who is it? I think it's Corey Burton who is Count Dooku. Let's see.
Works for me. Earlier on in the episode, Obi-Wan is kind of cajoling Satine. He says, rushing in like this, it's foolhardy. And she comes back. This is more of the same debate they've been having for 3 episodes now. She says, ironic words from a man who spends days running hither and yon, wielding his lightsaber and deadly force as if on a crusade. Why should I listen to someone who so frequently relies on violence? In my opinion, you're the one who's foolhardy. So she's got these like really long, not soliloquies, but these fairly flowery mini monologues that she does really well with. They're just not catchy.
Yeah, they're delivered really well, and I did like the use of foolhardy a lot. I liked its use.
I like hither and yon.
Yes, hither and yon, but also another one of those instances where Star Wars gets away with the flowery dialogue, and she's a character that can deliver it, and it's allowed to, and it has that great blend. It has since Governor Tarkin since the very bloody beginning, so it makes complete sense.
This is after her speeder's been attacked. She says to Obi-Wan, I wasn't hurt. I didn't want to worry you. And he says, well, I'm afraid on that count, you've failed spectacularly, which is kind of sweet.
Oh, I didn't catch that one, or I would have wrote that one down.
And also a Count Dooku line. Maybe this is connected to, no, because you said yours is from the beginning. This is at the end of the episode. Count Dooku says, without the backing of my focus or your people, your revolution will be over before it begins. A neophyte such as you wouldn't know these things, but I do. I have other ways to accomplish our goal. It's just very ominous and villainous.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a good line. Definitely a good line. And yeah, Pre Vizsla is quite the hot-headed warmonger.
How did pizza work?
Yeah, you want to do a couple of trivia?
Sure. So you already said my Padawan question, which is, what is the name of Palpatine's blue associate who undermines Satine? It's Masameda. Bonus question, what is his species?
He's a Chagrian.
Correct.
You already got both of my Padawan, which was, okay, what was Jarek's title?
I do know it. I'm not going to come up with it, but it was...
It's a pretty generic one.
Yeah, it was. I remember that, but I tried to make a mental note of it, and now it's gone.
Deputy Minister Jarek.
Minister. I was looking for the word minister. I knew it was in there somewhere. Where and how does Palpatine say Jarek perished this morning?
Death Watch killed him on Calvella in a bombing.
That's right. Death Watch bombing on Calvella.
Yep. Cool. Yeah, that's where we said Satine was from last time.
Gotcha. Okay.
Where did Satine's contact find the full recording of Jarek?
I don't know.
In the evidence facility at the ministry. Buried deep in the evidence facility.
Master question, what was the name of Satine's pilot who died in the navigation sabotage?
Aramis.
Is that a character?
No, I don't think so, but that is, I think, a name of one of the 3 Musketeers, so it stood out to me.
Athos, Porthos, and Aramis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where did Satine's contact get shot?
In the shoulder?
Oh, sorry. Maybe that's a really good answer.
I don't know.
I meant where on the streets of Coruscant.
I couldn't tell you.
Sector GL5.
Okay.
Is it?
All right. There was another sector name checked at one point, and I don't remember when or why, but it was IG-44, and I
It
only
was.
remember that because that's a strange choice of sector name, considering there are other IGs in Star Wars that mean something entirely different. And I remember 44 because it's half of 88.
Yeah, it is interesting that they do that with the kind of the alphanumeric style. It is also extremely Star Wars to reuse numbers, though.
I guess
They reuse numbers constantly. 3, 2, and 7 being probably the most frequent reusage of numbers in Star Wars.
I thought it was a funny moment when the clone troopers are looking for Satine and they like have her picture and they're talking to an alien, and they realize very quickly that this alien doesn't understand them, and they just kind of give up.
Yeah.
That's a funny moment. Do you know what kind of species that guy is? Don't have a meltdown.
He's an Ithorian.
Ithorian. Okay, see, that's great. Good. These are all of the observations I made about this episode. There wasn't that much to see. Frankly, I found it a little boring at times, but visually, I thought it was really cool because it really felt, more than any other episode I've seen so far, really felt like it belonged in the universe of the Star Wars prequels.
Yeah, I thought it was a good episode. I definitely felt like it would have served itself with the next episodes coming up sooner. So like it's pretty drawn out. I think this episode, and I would be interested to see if you watch them in chronological order, if it's a little bit tighter of a time window before we come back to Mandalore. But I don't think it's as tight as it should be, because this is a rather open-ended spot to kind of leave things. And I remember when watching Clone Wars through the first time, it was easy to forget kind of where certain plots left off, and especially made it confusing when things were out of order, which they were. I didn't watch it in chronological order. I've yet to watch it start to finish in chronological order. I've watched, I started and I've watched all of it over and over again, but I usually just go back and watch the key arcs that I like. But
I mean, that's cool. That's a neat way this show is set up narratively that most shows don't. Like, I love that it's broken up into these little mini runs that feature different people and different storylines, and they just like they sideline characters for long periods of time. It's very comic booky in that way, and I think it's a neat place to play with that kind of narrative style and organization.
I think they're going to do that a ton with the Bad Batch. I think with characters like Fennec Shand being in there, likely large Rex storylines, I can't imagine that not being. I would imagine a Boba Fett storyline, especially kind of complementing all the other Boba craziness. So actually, do you want to kind of transition to that? Do you have anything else to talk about this past episode?
No, the only thing I wanted to say is that you can see in the background a blue protocol droid at one point, and I thought he looked pretty cool.
I looked him up. He looked purple to me, so that's where I didn't find anything about said character. When I Googled him, I found his picture, but I couldn't find out what his name was the way that they're named in the movies.
Cool though. Yeah, that's all I got. That's all I got.
Yeah, so I guess on that Boba Fett note, I did see a little interview with Tamara Morrison, and further evidence that he might be one of the he might be the coolest human on Earth, or even in the galaxy for that matter. But he was just being goofy and talking about being in Hollywood, working in Hollywood, and a bit about the book of Boba Fett. Not much, but he kept referring to it as a movie as well. So that further cements to me that it is 4 episodes, or maybe 6, but it is not going to be over 2.5 hours of content. It's going to be short and tight, because he called it a movie like 6 times.
Is it out of the question that it's going to be a made for Disney Plus movie? Is that impossible?
No, I guess you're right. That's a very good point. Maybe it will be a movie. Yeah,
that could be really exciting.
Yeah, it could be. I think I'd rather a mini series. Just I'd rather have it over a month's period of time to get a little bit of enjoyment and a couple cliffhangers in there, maybe. But yeah, I mean, I'd be okay with the movie as well. But he definitely it feels like that's the way that they're filming it. And so my guess is Robert Rodriguez is the only director. I don't think we've had confirmation that he is the director. We have confirmation he's producing. So my guess is he's directing as well, and he's doing the whole thing.
If it's that tight, it might as well be one singular vision.
Yeah, that makes the most sense, especially with Favreau and Filoni also taking part in said vision.
Yeah.
And also with Robert Rodriguez, they've been practicing guitar together a little bit, and they've formed a kind of a mini band, and they're Boba Fett and the Strum Troopers.
Cute. I
Yeah.
love it.
And so then he panned down to the interviewer and showed them his T-shirt, and it had actually my T-shirt's got some Grogu.
Nice.
But yeah, his T-shirt was a Boba Fett and the Strum Troopers T-shirt, so that was hilarious.
Amazing. I love that.
As also in kind of Disney Plus news, Ahsoka. So Mina Masood, who played Aladdin in the recent kind of live action Disney version of Aladdin, is the heavily rumored favorite to be playing Ezra in the Ahsoka show. And this makes a ton of sense. He's 29. He's Egyptian Canadian. He played the most famous, street rat of movies, and now we have the street rat of the galaxy far, far away. So it just makes too much sense. He was one that I've mentioned before, and a lot of people have as well. So if that's the case, that seems like a really good fit, and I'd be game for it.
You were on this several months ago, and I mean, I've only seen him in one thing, and it was Aladdin, and I thought that movie was okay, but I thought he was fine, and so this is cool.
Yeah, character needs to be charming. Character needs to have an ability to work with animals. The character needs to have a young liveliness, and needs to be about the same age as Luke Skywalker would be at this specific point in time. Everything lines up. I think he could be a really good fit. And it's also further, if that's the case, it's further evidence that we'll be seeing the live action Thrawn. And if that is also the case, then it further proves said rumors before of Lars Mikkelsen being in there, being more likely. So always makes me happy when that is a little bit more likely. Also in Disney Plus news, just kind of an interview, Ronald D. Moore, who I don't know a whole lot about. I recognize the name though, and I looked into, and makes this a lot of sense as to why. He worked on Star Trek, The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Battlestar Galactica, Outlander, and For All Mankind. So he is the sci-fi guru of television. Yeah. And in particular, he also was part of George Lucas's ABC attempted go at Star Wars television. And so he was part of that project. And so he recently signed a deal with Disney, and he was speaking with Collider, and was telling them how he would love to get another crack at doing Star Wars television. Right. And he said it was one of the greatest, one of the coolest experiences of his life, getting to write lines of dialogue for Darth Vader. And so there was, I think, 44 scripts of that show, and he was a big part of it. And so he's now in the Disney fold. They've been giving a lot of these deals to creators like this. And so he said that it seems very full right now, but I think having someone like him interested and already part of Disney, perfect. You do some grooming with him. You don't need to do grooming with him. He was groomed by Lucas. Never mind. He can just plop right in, which is almost impossible.
But isn't it crazy to imagine that there are 44 scripts of like something that was at the time deemed canonical Star Wars, and like it's just out there, presumably with a lot of richness and maybe some woe factor, and it's just like it has to be modified, but there's probably some gold in there.
Yeah, I think there is. If I'm not mistaken, it's Elizabeth Olsen that's in the test footage and as the main character, and so that's even more relevant now than ever. And yeah, I think it would have been very cool. I think time goes to show, like, because in the shots, it looks a little janky, and it would have been the landslide, not even close, above and beyond earth-shattering records, most expensive television production ever. So it wasn't going to happen. But it does go to show that someone like him could maybe revitalize some of those ideas. It wouldn't shock me if Dave Filoni has revitalized some of those ideas already. But anybody who worked with Lucas and has some experience like that, that's encouraging and exciting, and hopefully will one day happen. And I know he's got a lot of other fans and Battlestar with people like Katie Sackhoff in the fold. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that sounds great. Cool.
Also, Tom Holland came out and mentioned that he had auditioned and made it reasonably far in the audition process for Finn. It was likely called Sam at the time, and based on some of the early character sketches, it kind of works for what they were going for. But apparently he lost his composure during a prep scene when someone was doing droid beeps, going like beep boop beep boop beep, and doing like little like droid noises, and he kept breaking, and he said it was one of the most embarrassing audition days for him ever.
And I guess because he wasn't proven as a movie star. Like that dude is a movie star. He's with us for long haul, and he would be great in Star Wars too. And I was gonna say he's gonna be in Dune, but that's not right. That's Chalamet. Anyway, yeah. He has now made a movie with Daisy Ridley, and so I guess the two of them will see if they have chemistry. But it's weird because it doesn't feel like he's in the same generation as John Boyega to me. It feels like he'd be too young to play a Finn type.
John Boyega is young. How old is John Boyega?
He seems more.
He's mature.
Well, but he's also quite boyish in The Force Awakens in a way that really benefits the character, whereas Tom Holland is boyish in a way that benefits Peter Parker. It just would not be the same with him in Star Wars.
No, it definitely wouldn't. And John Boyega was the right call. But during filming, he would have been around 21, John Boyega. And so, yeah, I think that's about right.
But Tom Holland probably would have been, what, like 17? I mean, it doesn't matter. But
George. Well, he is. He would have been 17. You're right.
Okay. I mean, that would have been fine. That would have been doable. It just would be different.
Yeah, I mean, George Lucas certainly wanted more teenagers in this series or this trilogy. But
do you want to see? Have we talked about that before? Would you want to see Tom Holland in Star Wars?
I would be okay with it. It's a little tough because he's so Peter Parker, and he's. I know he has the capability of doing so much more, but in kind of nerddom. So maybe it may take a while. He's such a talented actor that I agree with you. He'll be around for the long haul. So will Star Wars. So maybe it needs to be 10 or 15 years from now when he's a little bit older. Maybe then it would work a little bit better.
Speaking of the MCU, you know who I want to see in Star Wars because she's crushing it in WandaVision is Kat Dennings. She's just got hilarious wryness, this IDGAF to her that it would be perfect in Star Wars.
No, that's good. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as long as it's not anything like the one joke every 3 seconds of Two Broke Girls, then it's okay.
I wouldn't hold that network sitcom against her. It just got her rich. That's all.
No, yeah. I mean, hey, good for her in that regard.
That's right.
I mentioned before, Queen's Peril will be the final book of that trilogy of Padme books. And this one will be told during a similar time to Revenge of the Sith, the end of the Clone Wars. And so that'll be a really great time to potentially when she finds out she's pregnant and while she's in her relationship with Anakin, as opposed to just meeting Anakin. And so the first book was when she was just becoming queen. The second book was when it takes place right before the Phantom Menace into the start of the Phantom Menace through the end of the Phantom Menace. And so it's a really cool kind of retelling of that from her perspective. And so this one being of a different time period as well. I'm excited to read this.
Yeah.
They also have a Secrets of the Sith book. There was a Secrets of the Jedi book a little while back, which was Luke's perspective and on readings of other Jedi and kind of what he knew. And you learned about him communing a little bit with Anakin. It wasn't, there's not a ton of content in the book. They're just, they're kind of just nice coffee table books a little bit. But this one's Secrets of the Sith, and so it's told from Sidious's perspective. So it would not surprise me if there was some really good little lore nuggets about dark science, secrets only the Sith knew, cloning, and all that crap. And so it would make a lot of sense to have a bit in there. But other than that, that's all there is in the news. Any birthdays or any news you come across?
A couple of big birthdays. On Monday, March 1st, they share a birthday. Lupita Nyong'o, happy birthday. And also to Ron Howard.
Oh, nice. Cool.
Couple of good ones there. What do you want to do?
Definitely want Maz back. Definitely want Maz back in
Yeah,
Star Wars.
we haven't talked a lot about that because obviously the big disservice done in the consecutive movies is Finn, but it does seem like she got sidelined in a way that didn't need to be either. She was brought in to be the new Yoda, which is probably like, that's a little big for her britches, but she could have been pretty fascinating. And so I'd like to see more.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, big for britches, but was a total waste of space in The Rise of Skywalker, just kind of hanging around and being like the translator for, Leia can't say this line because the actress is unfortunately no longer with us. So I will say it as your conduit. But she was awesome in The Force Awakens and she knew so much. And it would have made sense for her to know a lot about Luke and to be able to be telling Rey more about that and to help her on her Force journey more than she did. But
do a young Lor San Tekka show and put Maz Kanata in it.
Yeah, that'd be very interesting. There is some interesting tidbits about the San Tekkas in the High Republic era. So as I learn more, I can share some of those juicy reveals with you as well too.
Just spitballing, but what do you want to do on the podcast coming up?
Do you want to do kind of some more top 6 and 6s? Do you want to do a deep dive? Do you want to do kind of our favorite things about Revenge of the Sith? What was it? What interests you?
It's just about time to do favorite things about Revenge of the Sith. That could be a good top 6.
I watched it over the weekend, so I actually already did my list for that one because I knew it would be coming around the corner. So I'm already prepped and ready to go.
So we'll have that coming up. I would like to do some like specific topical deep dives coming up as well. Maybe veer off format here and there, but that's what's coming up in the podcast. We had a nice little tight one tonight. Wow.
Yeah, it's certainly one of the shorter ones, but I kind of felt that as I was watching an episode of Clone Wars, it was it's not one that you can talk about a whole lot. It's one that is best enjoyed and kind of just compared to other parts of Star Wars and other pieces of film that have inspired Star Wars. It's a really good example of one that if it was done in The Mandalorian, everyone would talk about all of the key old school films that I'm too much of a film moron to know about. That
I was going to say novice.
Okay, thank you, novice. Sure, that I don't know about that are kind of direct nods that are being used in this episode because I'm sure there were quite a few.
Yeah, it was good. It was a lot of fun. Okay, well, as always, if you want to contact us based on anything about this podcast or any other or any Star Wars thoughts you might have in general, you can always tweet at recorder66 or email recorder66podcast@gmail.com. We are available on all major podcast platforms. So rate and review on whichever is your preferred app. We're also on YouTube, recorder66. And as they always say over there, if you could like and subscribe, that's how other people can join our tiny, very, very exclusive little community. We would love to grow that because obviously Star Wars fans are freaking everywhere. And we would
rate and review. That makes a big difference and more people will find us maybe. And that'd be kind of cool.
If you want to be on the same page as us by the next podcast, maybe come up with some things that you like, especially about Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Come up with a top 6 list if you like. If you send it in to us before we record, we'll share it on the episode. And until we are together again,
may the Force be with you.